Here we are, back in the building. Quinny and Stish, we're back again for another episode of the End Product Podcast. What number are we at now, Quinny? Where are we at on the
I want to say
clock?
95. Yeah, 95.
95. 95.
Bellingham overhead kick minute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, less spoken about that, the better. I think this time last week, we were a few days from it coming home, and unfortunately it didn't. So here we are, another normal Thursday. Do you know what I mean? In the life of an English football supporter, sadly. But not so sadly for yourself, Quinny, I suppose, and everyone on your side of the border probably quite happy with that final result. You didn't have to hear any more talk for another couple of years of England off to win some silverware. We'll have to wait until America for that now, I think.
Yeah, another lifetime of hearing about Euro 2024. I'm glad we have definitely not been sentenced to that for sure. But we're a wee minute or two late, Stishy boy. Good to see you as ever. Great to be back on the podcast as ever. And we're set up for some big time end product today because we were just chatting before coming on, and I was like, look, we better get going because we're going to get into some good stuff. Because there's a few talks of the town at the moment. I must say right off the bat, a bit of a confession. I was hoping, and I don't know why, but I was expecting. I was hoping we'd have a complete prize pool. I was expecting us to get the special weekly, some sort of thing that was promised. I thought on Wednesday. So I thought podcast on Thursday, even at this time of day. Surely by that point, it'll be out. But alas, it's not. So little thing with that to the sides for the now. But the main talk of the town now is, of course, early access, pre-sale, pre-orders, however you want to think of it as. We've got a question in the chat already. It means Stish, we're talking about a few of the prices that we've seen go for some of the new in-season cards for the 24-25 season in the Contender region, particularly the ones in Scotland. Celtic getting their 4th season of cards, and they're in the nice shiny packs. And we see Rangers join the platform for the very first time, so they're getting their first full complement of cards, as well as, I think Austrian League was on, and there was a fair amount of Contender action there. But the prices, Stish, have caught a lot of people's attention for how crazy not even the one-offs we're going for.
Yeah, I've been really surprised. I mean, I've only been looking sort of briefly at, I'm gonna try and have a little look at some of the recent sales on Sorare data while we're chatting. But I was very surprised just sort of tracking that Matt O'Reilly in season, which I think was, if I'm not mistaken, was the first one, or it was definitely the first one on like my watch list anyway. So if it wasn't the absolute first, the price of that was actually quite more inflated than I expected it to be. I don't know about you, but we all know what Matt O'Reilly's capable of scoring wise. Obviously, as a collectible, a lot of Celtic collectors are on the platform. We'll get into some of the nuances around not selling the number one at this point as well. But yeah, to the point, it went for quite a bit more than I expected it to go. I don't know about you, but yeah, we were expecting the prices to be a little bit inflated, but I think that like when you look at his average price of his recent cards in what will now be like the classic season, it went for quite a lot more than I expected to see. So I don't know, to take that, is that like a good reaction from the prize pool announcements that we got? I think that in-season cards got another extra little boost, didn't they, in that news where we didn't realize that we were also going to get boxes. Now you've got the boxes, you've got the potential to craft cards as well as win cash. And yeah, maybe that's potentially going to push the prices up higher than they might have been a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I do think there's been a lot of good energy put into the value of in-season cards in that sense. Like you say, adding the boxes in where there's the market credits in the essence, but not only that, for these like early access cards, the 5% chance of double bubble, to get another card on top of a similar caliber from the same team. The same team is guaranteed, and a 95% chance on a random amount of essence. Again, probably quite relatively tied to the club and the league of the the early access purchase that you've made. And I'm pretty sure they did stress like that kind of thing, that they are focusing in on rewarding like for on clubs in a few different kind of methods. So when you factor that into it, and the 1 in 10 chance that 1 in 10 of these packs will be special edition also, which even though it won't be a one of, which is also special editions for collection bonus, the special edition 10% chance in there as well is just another thing to kind of wet the whistle on.
Yeah, there's quite a lot, I guess, riding on it when you put it in that way. But Yeah, I was just looking now on sort of like James is it Tavernier or Tavernier? Like how do you even pronounce that up in Scotland?
Tavernier, I think, is the most common way it's said up here, but there is like 4 ways of saying it.
I don't watch much of Rangers personally, so you know, I see his name when it pops up, doesn't it? It's like because his scores are obscene. So it was interesting to see what they were going to go for, and you know, like clicking on the limited and seeing that people are doing instant buy 111 quid at limited level for his in season. Yeah, I mean, the auction of his rare 410. It's pretty punchy considering that's contender cards, because I think there is definitely a gap between contender and challenger and champ, isn't there? In terms of like your top earners in those divisions go, you know, they're almost in tiers themselves now, aren't they? So not having our kind of like all-star competitions where you can use that card to win the Mbappes and that, but to see it at that kind of price, I think you're essentially buying it to try and win another one, aren't you? I think at some stage of the season, if you're looking at cards. But I suppose if you're buying in season, you're looking to win cash, and that, I guess you can't deny that is one of the cards that you'll want to have if you really want to be competing for the cash rewards this season. So yeah,
a big card for sure, and I think it does tell the tale of the tape quite well for how these prices are going to go. It is going to be on a sliding scale to some extent, but like Tavernier has got a bit of that transfer jeopardy to Saudi Arabia for anyone that's maybe not aware. So again, like I was talking to a Rangers following friend of mine yesterday, and he wasn't totally sure. When I even mentioned the whole captaincy thing, he said he's not even too sure that's a thing, or if it's just been reported or whatever, because I've not had any official matches or anything yet. So, you know, it's a funny one. I think his price, like at limited level, definitely does catch the eye, because limited cards at over £100 essentially are in that £100 realm. Yeah, especially outside the champion, are very few and far between, you know. So it just shows you the power of like a really, like, he has a meta defender, you know, if he stays at Rangers, like without doubt, you know, like he will always be in, you know, there's 10 limit, these 3 rares, wherever they are, 2 are on buy now, I suppose. Like they are going to be in the top 40 positions probably, you know, because a defender that brings home those scores regularly enough it's just going to help you. It's just unavoidable. This guy will help your team if he stays there, kind of thing. So it's good to see that kind of power. But in terms of like the actual little sliding scale thing, I brought Butland up because of the question we had in the live chat there. But I think the Butland Limited paints a really good picture of how these not early access, we've got no experience of this, but like when cards first drop and the kind of the roller coaster you go through with the auctions kind of happens. So the very first one went 20 hours ago for 61 quid, and that's been a kind of middle average. 3 hours later we get 58. 23 minutes ago we get 65, which is more than the first one, and 3 hours ago we get 69, which is more than the first one that was sold. But what's kind of interesting now is that Sorare obviously put a bit of a ceiling on the market at the moment with that instant buy, you know, for any existing auctions that are running. There's still 2 going here, but there's normally 1 or 2 that do go cheaper than the rest quite clearly, and it's never an exact science to it. Sometimes it's the second one, like it is here. Sometimes it's the 6th one. Just depends on what the player is. But there's always one that maybe just creeps below the rest of them, and you're like, oh, that guy got a great price, but it's just never happening again, kind of thing. But generally, like you know, you do see that you know, the price is going to start really high with the first couple, and as people, because it's bidding, you know, it's all auctions. So if we look at the one that's got 2 hours left, it's at 41 quid. It's a safe assumption that these guys would have been involved in the previous auctions to a greater or lesser extent, and they maxed out at whatever they maxed out at. And so far, there's been, in theory, this is of course 4 people that were willing to go 1 bid more or 2 bids more than they were, and that's why they're still in the auction looking for one. So that's what's kind of felt in terms of the demand for the cards, in terms of I need to get it now, you know. And we've all had auction fever before, you know, where you're just like, I'm getting it, you know. And, you know, so what you're seeing with a lot of these guys is like the deepest of the well, you know, when people are like, oh, I want that first one. There's an extra bit of hype around it, maybe being special edition. Maybe there's another card that comes with it. Maybe there's some essence that comes with it, as well as then, like you say, the prize pools. And the Rangers cards are a wee bit different as well, because they are the only season we've ever had of them. So there's always going to be that first issue kind of demand. There's a lot of Rangers fans on the channel, you know, and in the community in general.
Yeah.
And there's always those neutrals that didn't get a Celtic stack that thinks maybe I could get a Rangers stack, you know. So
yeah.
Wee bit different to the average run of the mill mid-table Serie A team or whatever in some ways, because it should be a top of the table, top of the leaderboard kind of set of players we're looking at here.
I'm just having a little look at the completed auctions now, just to sort of have a little look at some of the like lesser thought of players, just to see, you know, if they're firstly clicking a few that I recognise the names of. I'm just going to have a look at Perisic here and just compare his last auction of his new card. So if we look at Perisic, and if I go on rare, I mean, the price of, you know, Perisic has been going for 11 quid, 10 quid at rare. And then his auction of his first in-season is 35. So, you know, you're looking at a 3x premium on the in-season cards versus classic at the moment. Does that feel like a good... Do you think that makes sense, 3x?
It feels expected based on what we've had before, because normally what we've had before is like a first to market kind of benefit on buying the early auctions. But because these are all pre-sale, like there's all these cards will be in people's galleries by the time the first competition goes out. So that early to market kind of situation is definitely diluted than what it was before. You know, granted, on that same note, when we were getting first issues of cards before, where maybe a game or two at the very most, or the very least, depending on how you look at it, into the season. So again, it was just getting the maximum amount of games out of them. Obviously now all of these will get maximum games as long as fit and available. So I do feel it's kind of expected in the Sorare marketplace, if that makes sense. But in some logical way, it doesn't make sense, because no one's getting an early to market advantage with these, really, except for the Rangers ones potentially, because they are the only ones in existence, you know. So if Rangers first game of the season win 3-0 and do their kind of way that they normally score points, and those Rangers stacks will be the only ones in the leaderboard. And if there's only like 10 of them, let's say, depends on what scarcity we're talking about or whatever, then those 10 teams are all going to be at the top of whatever divisions they're in, you know, somewhere or another. I just want to grab this comment from Tom Lister. Fist bump, mate. Welcome to the channel. He's new to Sorare, and he's asking, let's say I bought a limited Tavernier. That would mean I would get another limited from Rangers, or would it be any cards type from Rangers? So if you click it, so if you buy one on like auction or instant buy, there's a 5% chance you'll get another card from Rangers of the same like Sorare tier. So all the cards are ranked from star tier 1 to 5, 5 being the shittest, star being the best. Tavernier will be a star. How many more stars are in the Rangers squad is a detail to be thinking about as well. Sorare won't know that until there's more auctions out. So maybe the Rangers one, you maybe wait until there's a few auctions gone if you're thinking about rare. But I know you've mentioned limited here. And that's when we've seen the Karim Konate come out as a doubler, because that was the only other Salzburg card in that... there's only one of that, maybe a star tier. There's the only other star tier limited in Salzburg. So I think I can maybe pull this on screen as well. But I just wanted to grab that. Sorry, Stish. I'll let you.
No, it makes sense. But yeah, I'm just sort of like having a little look at the ended auctions, and I'm just sort of trying to filter by some of the divisions. It's a bit easier to do it in limited, but let's have a look. I mean, if you look at, I'm just looking now at players who are, I'm looking for some starters. Okay. So everything, Nicholas Heddle, so, you know, U23 goalkeeper, early access card, just sold for, you know, almost double the floor price. And you see at most of the time, it's more than 3x the floor at the moment across most of the players, especially when you're looking at starters and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, some of the really... It's crazy when you're looking at it. It's especially, so I'm just gonna like refresh my memory on, obviously we had the prize pools announced, didn't we? And I think one of the big things to come out of it for me was it felt a little bit like classic mode definitely didn't hit quite as punchy on the reward pools in terms of the size of the pools as a lot of us were expecting. I think top 25% are going to get a box, so you might win some essence or boosts or whatever. And then obviously we knew about the cash podiums. That's fine. We expected that. But I personally was quite surprised how few actual card rewards there were. And I know that you could argue that, yeah, but you're going to be getting essence, and essentially if you're entering X amount of divisions, you might have enough essence to win a tier 5 at the end of every week or whatever. But you know, I don't know about you, but my gut feeling is that I don't think people are going to be taking the risk on a tier 5. They might save up for a 3 or 4 plus, just fancy their chances a little bit more. At, you know, worst case scenario, getting a tier 3 might be a bit more useful. But yeah, I think there was a lot of noise from the community. People a little bit disappointed, a bit of a kickback from classic card holders. As you know, most of us who've been on the platform as long as we have, especially people I guess listening to this, a lot of our listeners are probably like old heads. So yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't fancy my chances too much in these classic modes unless you go out and you buy. And I guess that buying classic cards right now, it doesn't feel as bad. I've definitely dipped into the market a little bit this week actually because of it.
So I want to say on that note, I want to ask you a question as well, but I want to say on that note, one thing that I've definitely started to come around to the headspace of thinking about when I've been looking. So I've did a few streams over the last week or two, and then like the little kind of intro part of the stream, I've just been kind of going through strategy and comparing my team to the prize pools and stuff. And one thing I'm starting to, I don't think appreciate's the word, right? But I say one thing I'm starting to have in my headspace is that Sorare have forever been fearful of rewarding too many cards or running out of cards. Like, that's something that they have consistently guarded against. And it is to the frustration of different people in different segments of the community, you know, especially up the higher the scarcities go. So I do think that essence is such an unknown factor. Really, you can project, and I'm sure they can, to an extent, control how much essence actually gets RNG'd out, you know, like, so they don't just give everyone like far too much too quickly or too much over a season that they couldn't fulfill it or whatever. So there's no way you could actually know how many cards will go through the crafter, if that makes sense. So yeah. I think like there's, you know, again, when you look at the card rewards, I've got Champion Classic, which should be the premier classic competition, really. Now, granted, there's only 5 leagues in here, but it is like, what would we call it? 3 full leagues and 2 half leagues, essentially. So do we say 4 leagues to keep it easy maths or whatever? Yeah. So full 4 leagues, and like, yeah, not beyond 100 really in any of the spots. Yeah, does make it feel like just as tough as Champion's always been tough, you know. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like it's any easier regardless of the divisional split, because even if you do find yourself regularly, like, you'd never get promoted into D1 because you aren't good enough, you know. So D2 is your limit, but you don't really do that great in D2. So if you're like a real D3 kind of player where maybe you're yo-yoing in that situation, what are you really going to collect across the season? Probably a fair amount of tier 4s and below. So that's 33 back, you know. And I know this is D3, you know, and D4's even worse in terms of caliber, but it's just because it's quite shallow the whole way up. Now, top 100 in D2, like, I would fancy myself to get into the prizes there sometimes, but like, you do expect, because this is like concentrated now, Champion maybe has a bit of an asterisk on it because it does have league specific competitions to also satisfy.
Yeah,
you know, but even in Challenger, which has not got that problem, it's a little bit better than the middle of the sandwich, you know. And then in Contender, which is just a Royal Rumble of a division, like, yeah, again, it's not even really that different, you know. So I think there's just a hyper conservative attitude on like how much is going to get crafted, and maybe crafting is like most people's actually route to winning cards, because like not that many people will be winners, and it does take a different team now to build a winning team because of how shallow the classic pool is.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that has stuck out in this sort of transition period is there is still an element of excitement when you get your card openings versus, like, obviously winning cash is always great, but you don't get any of that surprise like factor when you're opening your rewards that you get with a card win. And I think my only issue with Essence is it's not as exciting when you win Essence. It's like, oh great, cool, I can save up towards. But I don't think you get that same buzz, even when you've got a tier 4 or 3 of, like, you know, you accept that you've won a tier 4 or 3, so you're you're not going to be expecting an Mbappe or something like that. And I guess that's the difference with Essence is you might win an Mbappe even with 40 Essence if you want it. We've seen some retweets on Twitter. I'm sure anyone who follows people within the Sorare community will have seen the retweets of like someone crafting an Mbappe out of a tier 5 amount of Essence and stuff like that. It does happen. So I guess there's that. But I think I've only used Essence once so far. I got a Conza, which I was quite happy with in terms of like its usability. But I also just felt it wasn't as exciting as, if I found myself in a tier 4 or 5 pool and won a Conza, I would have been like, oh, pleasantly surprised with that. But I think I got what I expected when it came with the Essence. And I guess another thing is like how much Essence do we think we're likely to win in our respective divisions? I think that regardless of where your gallery's at, I think if you're in the right divisions for the cards you've got, you're in with a chance of winning something every week. Obviously, if you're at the Nanzo end of the spectrum, then you're expecting to win something quite exciting week on week. But for the majority of players, that may be, in my case, I think I've got a great gallery, but it's a bit thinly spread across all of the regions. So my gallery is really going to suffer without all-star and cap modes because all of my pieces my good pieces are spread over the divisions a bit too much. So I'm struggling. I struggle in the regionals for that reason because I don't have like a killer lineup. Apart from maybe I'd say I've got an okay one right now in Contender where a lot of the leagues are closed, and I think I've got some good cards across the K and J League. So I've got a good chance right now, but I'm still not quite competing at the top end of the K and J League like collectors. And I think I'm going to experience that a lot through this season. So my experiences of opening a reward or having the buzz are going to be few and far between. And I wonder if that reflects across a lot of people that listen. Be interesting to see what your hopes and like thoughts are on how maybe your Contender particularly is likely to fare in this season. We've obviously got quite a nice selection of Celtic cards that usually do pretty well. Do you still fancy them to do the business for you this season, or do you think that the competition is just going to be so high to hit those like bottom end of the prize pools?
Well, I think I was saying this when I was talking about my rares like the other day, but like the Celtic ones especially, but that's a collection I look at and I think I'm in the prize pool. Like, I'm not scared of scared's maybe not the right word, right? But when I look at this for my Celtics, like 3 Celtic teams with a few other players dotted around and whatever else, I expect to have 3 teams in D1 with a setup like that, Maybe 1 or 2 fall into D2 once in a while. Maybe it's just brutal game weeks or I make bad selections on players or whatever can happen, But I don't imagine my Celtic cards ever been in Division 3. I don't imagine ever been in Division 4 longer than a game week, really. So, and then as I've seen with the cards I've already got, obviously, like you mentioned, like I know that the right stack with the right captain choice, etc., gets the score you need to get high on the leaderboard. And then when you add collection bonus, you had it high XP into it, then I say I'm not worried about that. For a collection as strong as like my Celtic one, which is like 3 years deep and has got at least 2 copies of everyone meaningful in the team. So again, it's another thing with this. Not necessarily buy one get one free. I think it's a bit of a stretch to label it that. But the 5% chance to get another card on the pre-sale really does speak to the multi-entry like element of the game a lot more now. Where like buying multiple copies for anyone, any player, in terms of the card or any Sorare player, like it just wasn't a thing a lot of people did. But I think with in season this year, which is the prize pool that all these cards are being bought for, have exclusive access to. So all those cards are getting sold now on pre-order for Tom or anyone else who's new. They can play in Classic. If you're a madman, you could go and do that. But they're the only cards that can go into here. Now, you need 4 rare cards, 4 limited cards that are in season to field a team here. So you can use an old Classic one. You can maybe get a cheaper, like an O'Reilly Classic is like 100, 150 probably. And we've seen the in-season go for like 280. So you can get, some premium players maybe out of season that can help you depend on your budget or whatever. But really, for the largest part, when you look at that Taver, we looked at Butland, they are being bought to play in the limited version of this, but in this competition. And again, with some of those cards, like the better ones, like a Tavernier, like I mentioned, like it's hard to imagine if there's 15 Taverniers in limited and 5 in rare.
Yeah,
You're not going to find them somewhere hitting the money here.
yeah.
You know, 30 game weeks out to 38 with the right other players around them, obviously.
Yeah, I think anyone who's buying Tavernier right now is buying to, those accounts are going to be competing because you're buying an expensive card that has a low supply. That's pretty much as good as it gets in terms of like so rare right now. Anything with low supply, like you see it when players go to the Chinese Super League, don't you? And even in Classic, those Chinese Super League cards are just worth a bit more because you're paying to have a player in your gallery that like there might only be 10 or 11 of them on the platform, and with no real vision for them to be minted anytime soon either. So people picking up those Tavernier in seasons right now are now kind of committing to the fact that they're also going to have to buy probably a Butland, and they're probably looking at Rangers in terms of like getting that collection bonus up, getting that collection score going, because we know that's going to come into play quite heavily as well, especially in the cash positions, I think. But it'll be really interesting to see how many of these cards do get out before that first game of the season actually kicks off, because the whole point.
My camera battery. 2 seconds.
Sorry, I'll keep it going anyway. As I was saying, it'll be interesting to see how many of these, particularly in rare, is like, I guess like a kind of place to sort of place the marker on it. Just seeing how many maybe Taverniers would be the perfect example. I wonder how many there will actually be in that first game of the season in a few weeks' time in the market, in floating about, and how many people then maybe pick up that instant buy, and where that instant buy price will be as well come game 1 of the season, because I expect that to go up a little bit as well. The instant buy seems to kind of tick up at some kind of rate based on the last sale and the floor price, and yeah, obviously I guess the limited price must kind of like dictate how much the instant buy price is at any given scarcity. But yeah, it's been fascinating watching it, and I think personally it's something that I'm going to hang back out of for a minute. I'm going to try and win some in-season cards, and I'm hoping that starts sooner rather than later. Are you, Quinny, are you team hold or team buy? If you win any in-season cards now, any of those pre-release, are you looking to move them on, or do you think that you'll start building from now a potential in-season lineup, to particularly from the SPFL, I guess? Oh, you're on mute, mate.
Sorry, but that's a great question, because that's something I've been trying my best to kind of get across in content for the last little while. Is like there is more than one way to skin the cat here, and I guess across the 3 different regions, like the collections I've got, all kind of paint a little different picture in a roundabout way. So with Contender, I'm probably not going to be selling any of them, because Contender in seasons, yes, we're seeing some crazy auction prices. Yes, like the Taverniers and the O'Reillys and whatever will be premium versus the field. That's relatively speaking not going to change. But for the majority of rewards you're going to win, we're talking tier 2s and tier 3s. Tom's asking how exciting tier 3s are. Tier 3s are real dice rolls. Like, it could be really good or it could be really bad. It just depends on the pool. But tier 3 is a guy that should be playing to some level. They're not a DNP merchant unless it's a goalkeeper. But that's maybe a part of the jeopardy. You get just a number 3 goalkeeper, or something like that. It's just, but tier 3s can be handy for sure. I've had some great tier 3s. Tier 2s where you're getting a player, like from there onwards kind of thing. But for example, in my champion and probably challenger for what it's worth at this stage, any in-season cards I win from those regions, I'll be selling for the most part, unless it's like a card that I'm like, oh yeah, I want a Takikubo, or I want a, Goretzka or something, whatever it might be, something that I like, then I might keep it if I've been winning enough to kind of sell around it and still kind of balance the club, as it were, But yeah, so I think it depends. Like, 'cause I'll be playing all the regions. It depends on really. Let's say I think doing both has got a lot of merit, because the Contender in seasons, like relatively speaking to me, aren't really too much for me to be thinking about selling in the market. It's like a profit driver, or whatever you want to think of it as. But champion, I can definitely think about that, because I don't think I'll be able to afford or build an in-season champion team good enough or quick enough. So why bother? I'll just run the classics, and pull cards as much as I can, Whereas with Contender, it's the opposite, where like I think I could win a couple of cards quick enough, and I think I could win good cards quick enough, and I've got good classics to supplement. So it's better the tier 3 defender that rocks in a 58 most of the time. Just fucking keep him. No point selling him for 15 quid or whatever, etc.
Another thing I do think that we haven't touched on is the FOMO factor, because I think at the moment when you're buying these new in-season, soon-to-be revealed cards, obviously you've got that extra bonus we've already mentioned about that 10% chance of it being some special edition card that we don't know what that's going to look like either. But if you compare the price difference right now of these Contender in-season cards that don't actually have a fixture for another couple of weeks yet, in most cases, versus buying solid players in K and J League that already compete in those in-season tournaments, and their cards are still right now, you can buy them on the market, and they're good till like December when their season finishes. So you're not talking about a few months where you could compete. You're going to be competing with that Matt O'Reilly card that sold for like ridiculous amount of money at the beginning of the season in a few weeks' time when Celtic start playing their fixtures. But you're going to be playing with players who you now kind of know whether they're a starter or not. You know how they score. We can see like their team's current form. You can have a little look at like what's coming up. So you can actually project a lot better how those cards are going to perform versus the new in-season cards that, still not finished their preseason yet. You got to wait a few weeks and they're still going to be competing. So one thing for me that was why it was so fascinating was how inflated the prices are versus like buying proven scorers. Like I won like a good example, Savio, who plays for Raysalt in J League. The guy has averaged about, I don't know, his L5 is probably over 70. I'll have to quit.
I think his L5 is like 90.
He's absolutely smashing it. And you can pick his card up now at floor for like 100 quid. You can get, people are buying him for 86 quid. He's the current 76th best midfielder on the whole platform. But yeah, his L5 is 84. His L15 is 61. And he's been consistently scoring like this for a while now. So, if you look at his L40 is 63. Do you know what I mean? It's insane. And you can pick him up for 80 quid versus maybe picking that Tavernier up for like 400 or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And you're not, the only difference is obviously the supply is what it is. But, his in-season supply, he's got 72, which when you think about that, we're about halfway through the season maybe, or not even for his card, for his club. It's a big jump if you're already playing in season. Do you know what I mean? I'm just looking now. We are past halfway in the J League season, but yeah, like, does it surprise you how big the difference is on these uncovered cards versus proven scorers in the same region that you can use right now? Yeah, that surprises me.
The European guys are at game 0 now, but like you say, Savio is halfway through, so there's just a wee bit of crossover. And what you're achieving with an in-season Savio, you're winning money against European cards. If you know what I mean, it's not like you're winning cards over them when it's that in-season element. So again, it's maybe something to look at for the cards that are coming out now, because they'll follow the same sort of trajectory. Maybe they won't, follow the point per point, penny for penny, but that's the way the season will go out for a lot of these guys. So it is a wee bit buyer be cautious on the early issues. You need to know, like, hey, I'm lighting a bit of this on fire because I'm getting it now. Some value won't be returned from hard second transaction, selling it for more than you bought it for. You will need to play the game with it if that's your POV on it. I was going to say something else on that angle in terms of, I think this kind of more brings me to be interested in what the champion cards pre-sale will go for as a multiple on Classic, because there is no non-EU counterpart to kind of, squeeze that lemon with, whereas it will be like the champion region goes on the 31st of July, and then the seasons predominantly kick off 3 weeks later. So what are we thinking for rares? Maybe there's 6 to 9 copies of each.
Yeah, true.
I don't know, something like that. So then how many teams are realistically going to be eligible to be fielded? So you maybe still have a little bit of that early to market access with Champion, a little bit.
Another thing I wonder is, I might have missed it, but is there any rules about how many instant buys they can sell of any given card? Because what stops Haaland from going on sale on instant buy like next week or whatever it is, and 100 people buy it straight away? That how many can be instantly bought and how many have to be put in the prize pool, etc.? Do we know?
So I don't know if there's a stated rule as such, right? But we had a bit of an example of it earlier. Yeah, it was Butland. So there's 4 limiteds for sale here, but we've got 2 auctions and 1 instant buy. But I think there'll be, as you can see, there's another card behind this one. So I think there's only 2 instant buys available for this, because they are setting a ceiling on future auctions with these cards. You know, like it will not go above that. You know, so I don't think they would just leave like as many cards as permitted for instant buy to the devices of this system. So I think it is like do 5 auctions and 2 instant buy or something like that. So it's maybe a ratio to look at. So there's 2 instant buys sitting there. A UB, let's just confirm it was an auction. Will it tell us? There's been 1 instant buy done. So that's probably all we need to see there. So there's been 1 instant buy go out of these, and that means there's been 3 auctions then, yeah? 4 cards, yeah, so 3 auctions, 1 instant buy. So that would bring up to 5 auctions. So it's 5 auctions, 3 instant buy is the ratio they went with, like a Butland, for example. So I think that's maybe some sort of ratio. Like, what would he be, a tier 1? I don't know if he'd quite be a star, would he, on, especially when they've never got a card history for him, but I think that's maybe a ratio to maybe look at.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, but like you said, I think that those Prem, particularly the Prem, I think Premier League, maybe La Liga and Bundesliga pull up a little bit as well this season because of the individual divisions they've got. So yeah, I think that it's going to be really interesting to see what the pickup is, particularly on those divisions. How many people are going to be really targeting like the Premier League or the Bundesliga or La Liga? You've obviously got quite a few cards from La Liga. Are you looking at that La Liga competition as a good entry for you this season?
Yes, I am. So I wasn't planning on, like, I was half flirting with the idea of doing La Liga champion, and Alias Garcia even kind of took a wee bit of the wind out of my sails with it, because he's just such a powerful mid. But at super rare and at rare level, I've managed to do a couple of trades. They're actually 2 of them are the same card, but in both scarcities. And I don't think I've had any transfers go my way yet, but those 2 transfers alone, one's a goalkeeper and one's a mid. I'm talking about Jasper Kellison and Saul Niguez. Kellison's went to Las Palmas. They've just sold their number 2. They're selling the number 1 keeper. And Saul has moved to Seville to fill the Rakitic void finally. So no European football for Seville either. So that's a weekend-to-weekend card, which is lovely. But getting both those cards in, the goalkeeper especially, I'm now kind of toying with the idea, Stish, of like, I've got 4 goalkeepers at rare and super rare. I've got 2 rare La Liga keepers and 2 super rare La Liga keepers. And I'm now weighing up, if you had 4 keepers, I think we were all kind of talking like the convention would be like 3 classic and then you move one into a region, or maybe vice versa. But I'm now kind of weighing up running 2 and 2. And then, like, just really kind of focusing in on, because team 3, how strong is team 3 really going to be? You know? So I'm trying to maybe flip a wee bit of my psychology on how I'm picking my teams and how I'm building them, with maybe instead of being 1, 2, 3, 1, whether that be like La Liga and Champion or Champion and La Liga or whatever, and going 2, 2 across both of them.
Yeah. I've been having a little look at, like, I don't know how, I think I've got goalkeepers in Bundesliga and La Liga. I've got Kevin Trapp in the Bundesliga, who I don't really rate as far as SO5 is concerned. So, yeah, I'm not sure whether or not I think it'll be fixture based, my decision making on that thing. And similarly to you, there'll be a lot of times I think where I don't even run the 3rd team for like just strengthening those top 2 like entries or whatever I have got. And then I think even, you know, like in rare or in super rare, rather than have like a bog standard rare entry, I might go down into limited and try and really like, you know, use my super rares and my rares in those limited slots, which that'll be interesting to see. I think that a lot of people will almost treat that like a training lineup, won't they? And on the odd week, they might get lucky and win a limited card or win some essence or whatever. But it's going to be interesting to see how competitive those, you know, those limited entries do get, because I think a lot of the big collectors will have enough cards floating about that are unused that can just go straight into some kind of limited lineup. And for me personally, one of the things I have considered doing is buying classic season limited goalkeepers in different things, just so that I've got that available entry. Like, you know, if I've got random cards rather than them not being used at all, if I've got a limited goalkeeper, then I've got like a bunch of randoms that can just go in, you know, Division 4 of the limited entry in that competition or whatever, which, you know, my limiteds are pretty poor. So I am in lower leagues. I'm not in any sort of like Div 2, Div 1s in limited. So if I do pick up a few cheap goalkeepers, it just allows me to at least put those cards to use somewhere. A bit, you know, it's kind of that's what's come to my uniques really, because I don't have any like nailed on starter heavy hitting uniques. They're all more likely to be used in a limited lineup than they are anywhere else right now, especially with the change coming. We've only got a few more weeks left, haven't we, where those uniques can be used in all-star and get that nice little bonus boost. But yeah, I don't know about you, but obviously we've got only a few weeks left of the cap modes as well, Quinny. Have you been trying to scrape those last few thresholds? I actually managed to get the super rare one in for the first time in ages recently, and that hit differently, knowing we've only got a few more game weeks left where that's even going to be doable. Even had me dip into the market this week for a super rare defender just to try and pinch the bottom end, you know, like get a defender in for 40 quid to try and win 50, 60. So yeah, it backfired on me, sadly, and that's not going to get anywhere near the threshold. But how are you feeling about your threshold entries between now and the end of the month?
I've been running them. It's been mixed success. You know, it just depends. Sometimes MLS is just such a bag of frogs. Like, you just never know what the hell's going to jump out. So yeah, I'm plodding along with it. I was actually thinking about this in the car on the way in. Is like, I think when also in season contender stuff is kind of here, but I've not really got much contender action. But like when the leagues are going and all the rest of it, like I don't know if I'll hang on all the way with 240 to maybe try and get winning some in-season cards, perhaps with like my American stuff, really, more than anything. Because I've been playing them in the cap modes. Maybe I will just run them all the way to the end, but maybe I can field a team in that region, and maybe I will just to try and farm a couple of wins. But I just want to slide this on screen because Diego is talking about getting some sporting cards, and he's scared about the price. I think you'll know the price because at the moment they're not listed as a partner, so it's classic only at the moment. But we did see Rangers come on. There wasn't really a big announcement as such around it either. I would wait for pre-sale. Maybe Sporting come back. You know, maybe they're another kind of move in license thing, because we got a lot of news on the pre-sale about the license update for, like, there's no more La Liga 2 teams coming out this year. French Ligue 2 is like 2 teams now, and 1 or 2 other bits and bobs. So that might change, but before the pre-sale, Rangers were not here.
Yeah.
So you never know.
I'll tell you what, that is another interesting point, isn't it? We haven't really spoken about, but what were your thoughts on that announcement of the license? Obviously, we can only speculate on why, but I think it feels like when a whole league is not coming, it's a bit different to, you know, even with like Ligue 1, where some teams have the license, some don't, and this feels obviously different. They're not going to be out seeking licenses from random League 2 and La Liga 2 cards at the moment. That's my opinion on it. I might be completely wrong, but it feels like with those second divisions, it's either we get the whole league or we don't get them at all, because they've said that they're going to not be doing Lorient next season, who obviously came down. So that makes that, if you take that as a signal, it's like, you know, they're not going to actively be looking to renew licenses with teams in those divisions. So what did you think? What did you make of that?
Yeah, I don't think it's something they're putting a lot of energy into now, you know, because like they've got a full menu of teams there to really go and use for all of us, you know. And I do think like I've seen this somewhere, I can't remember where, but like it felt like limited cards were the answer to a solution that Division 2 cards at Rare would have solved also, if you know what I mean. So it felt like when Division 2 did come on, it was like a little bit of overkill on the market for availability and choice and all the rest of it, and good scoring potential across a multitude of different players. So you can't really bin limited at this stage, you know, but you can just probably say, let's just not carry on with that Bundesliga 2 and La Liga 2 stuff for as long as we're contractually obligated to. There's enough of them floating around. We've now got like all this other stuff everywhere. So you probably don't need, just because, again, like goalkeeper prices are at a really good place, and both scarcities really because of the big availability that's behind the platform already. And it is just in season is where any pressure is now. So is there a need to continually put that into every season of Sorare cards with the D2s? I don't really think so. So I think this is maybe a semi-deliberate move from them to like market correct somewhat.
Yeah, like bring the pools down a little bit, right? Market correction, like you said. Also, Quinny, breaking news, by the way, this has just been tweeted while we've been talking. Sorare have just announced that yes, it's happening. The export button is coming between Sorare data and Sorare. I don't know what you were hoping for. You looked like a bit deflated from that one, but that's a nice bit of news, isn't it? It's not a game changer, but it is going to be a time saver. That's for sure.
I caught a tweet from Sorare Data earlier today that kind of said the same thing. So, so that wasn't breaking. But what I was hoping it was the special weekly prize pool, because
we're waiting for that still.
Because in the big prize pool announcement, they did, and this is another thing, right? So, 10% of the prize pool is reserved for special weeklies, right? So, and what we're thinking with that cash, we're thinking cards maybe as well. Let's just say they're talking about cash. I think that's the 15 million quid that was specifically against, wasn't it? So at the moment, we've got 90% of the prize pool covering like all these leagues. How many are there? Is there an easy way to count them? 4. And then we're looking at La Liga, Bunde, Prem, 3 regions, so 6. And then that's times 4, so 24. So 90% of the prize pool is going across 24 competitions in a weighted term, you know. So let's see what the maths is on that. 0.9 divided by 24. So that's as an average, 4%, 3.75 if you want to be specific. So 10% is special weekly. Like, see a little bit of the bummed out feeling that we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, STISH, like looking at the and thinking, it's not that fat. Like, it is fine, it's competitive and whatever, but it's, when you see 15 million euros on the top, you expect there to be some wedge somewhere.
Yeah.
If 10%, and now it will go across scarcity, so maybe it's not too out of line with these other competitions when you think about it in those terms as well. But maybe the special weekly is like a mad party. Like, maybe special weekly is like lottery ticket effort.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And we should have, like you said, we should have had that news by now. So I don't know what the holdup is. Maybe they're still tweaking all of it, or maybe they showed it to a few people and the feedback was not what they were hoping for. But it's weird that we haven't had that update yet, because it was supposed to be a couple of days ago now, at least. But yeah, hopefully we get another breaking news in the next sort of 10 minutes while we're on there. But like TLDR, I am going to be probably selling any like in-season cards. Apart, maybe Contender I'll be keeping, because at the moment I've got in-season cards in Contender. I've got a lineup there. But yeah, beyond that, like you saying, I think Champ, unless you really want to get your wallet out, you're not going to be competing for the cash on the in-season. So I think most of my in-season winnings, if any, in Champ will probably be getting sold, unless you get really lucky and hit a star or something like that. But I mean, even then, you wouldn't be a bad thing to sell a star, would it? You get a few hundred quid at least. So it's going to be interesting to see if and how hard maybe getting in amongst those rewards is the new pools. But really keen to find out about the special weeklies. Like you said, maybe that is the bit of good news that we're all kind of waiting for, especially with our classic cards. I feel like we're all a bit deflated by the size of those prize pools. I think it's going to be so competitive. even to win yourself a box, like in that top 25%, I think scores are going to be pretty high. And as we know already now, I think captain is going to be the big thing now, isn't it? Getting your captain wrong and your game week's over already. So that can be a bit of a kick in the nuts if your captain plays on the Friday night and has an absolute shocker. It's kind of like game week done for that team. But another thing that we haven't spoken about was the scoring change. Did you spot that in the announcement?
Oh yeah,
On
great catch.
Substitutes coming in are not going to get 25 base score now. It's going to be 35. Do you think that is going to make a big? I feel like that will make quite a big difference on at least on the bottom end of the tables. You know, maybe not so much at the top end because people are probably using starters that smash every week anyway. But I think it will bring the bottom end of the scoring up a little bit, where people are chucking a couple of subs in that will probably get on at some point. You're almost guaranteed an extra 10 points off of that player coming off the bench now.
Kind of in line with what we mentioned already in a roundabout backwards way, but it makes a lot more cards viable for team 3 for you. Like even if you know they're a sub, but they're handy, because subs can get 10 AA in the right setting. You know, it's not unheard of. You know, and I know that team's not going to get you first on the leaderboard, but if you have, it's your third team. You know, if you still have a couple of guys that you think, oh man, I wish, you know, could I get a better team, but you just don't have the guy ready yet. But you've got like a super sub here that comes on every game at the 60th or 70th minute, plays up front, and if they're chasing a goal and shit, or it's an attacking, like we've seen Wirtz be 90 capable from the bench, even with that 25-point thing, you know, because, but again, it's for those times they don't get the decisive, because if you come off the bench and get decisive in the old system,
it jumps up anyway.
You know, it makes no difference. So it's for those guys that can come off the bench and maybe clip 10 AA and not kill a lineup, you know, can just maybe help it not sink all the way. And if you've got, say it's team 3s, but it's kind of limited to, but they did say the main thing for it is rivals. So I think that, I don't know what the feedback was, especially, or I think someone has referenced it. So there's maybe a feature, Germany is what a lot of people did cite, in fact, to me, the game against Scotland, where there was just like no forwards available or whatever. Yeah. So that may be part of it. But I do think, like, when it comes to making decisions in rivals, like, I was close to making a few subs, and it was like the guy I was subbing off was on 38 points or something like that. And the guy I was playing against had him too. So I thought, right, well, I'll be clever and I'll sub him off. And I'm only like a little bit behind him, you know. Yeah. And if he keeps him on, obviously his score's frozen. And playing that game is kind of hard when they start with 25. But if they start on 35, then like being agile and being quite engaged with rivals, making a sub, it might not actually hurt you as bad, because if your opponent has got like a run-of-the-mill starter that's done fuck all anyway, then your sub is at worst going to match up with them if they've got a guy like that, obviously. But so it'll be interesting enough. I think it'll be more rivals relevant, but I do think it opens up super subs for team 3s.
Yeah, it's a good shout. But I've definitely got a lot of players in my gallery that like I would never.
And the cat mode special weeklies, by the way. Sorry to jump on you there, but they did say that cat modes is going to be a special weekly feature. Yeah. So again, like if you've got a guy that you know is starting on the bench, and because of that he's an L15 at 38.
Yeah.
But he might get a start this weekend actually, or even if he comes off the bench, then it's in the cat mode. So fuck it, can be decent with a.
Can be really good.
+10, you know.
Especially for those first few weeks, right? If we do get a cap mode in the early stages of, you know, of this like new scoring, then a lot of those players L15s are still going to reflect the old scores where they come off the bench and their average is like 28 or something like that, because they just come off the bench, get a 3 or 4 like AA, and then the game's done. Suddenly, just coming off the bench, they're starting on a 35 now. You're getting 10. You're almost getting like 50% bonus on them in a cap mode. You know, it's like their score, their average goes from 28 to like 38. That's a big jump. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's going to be really useful. I'm definitely going to be hoping for some kind of cap mode action then, because I've got some great guys off the bench who can come on and just shore it up. Yeah,
you know, that's like 20-minute sub crap that they do and all that. You know,
so, yeah, the under 22 rule. And that would be much better for, like, I've got a player in Suwon who's great, Lee Seung Mo. He's one of their best players, but he often comes in after like 20 minutes because of the ruling. He won't start, but then he'll come on. And last season, I think I tweeted about him because his AA was incredible. So, you know, he was still Lee Seung Mo. Or was it Lee Seung Woo? Let me just see. Hold on.
Lee Sung-woo.
Lee Sung. Yeah,
This
Lee
guy.
Sung-woo. That's him. Lee Sung-woo. If you look at his scoring last season, actually pretty decent in the games where he didn't have a decisive, but you'll see like he came in off the bench, but it will still play like over 50 minutes. So, you know, he was just like, if he not started, you know, his AA was that good that he could come on and still manage to like hit like a 60 odd, you know, like 55, something like that. And be, you know, so his AA would be like 30 odd, but he wouldn't get a goal. But then it's like, if he started the game, you'd be looking at an extra 10 points. And he just sprung to mind quite a bit. It was just like, yeah, he seems to come on like, you know,
look at him.
Yeah, 30 AA for a forward card as well. So it's like a really good one.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 77. So this is what I'm saying. Like, he'll come in after like 18 minutes because of the rules or whatever. I think the first 22 minutes, they have to have X amount of under 22 players on the pitch. So some teams like Suwon last season didn't have enough quality at under 22. So they would make changes every game after about 20 minutes, 10, 20 minutes. And this man used to come off the bench nearly every week, and he was, you know, putting huge AA scores up. And in those games, you know, like he'll be 10 points better plus bonus. So yeah, be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's quality. By the way, he is a pure poster child of the point, isn't he? There's
Yeah,
not many of this guys floating about, but there is guys like this floating about, you know?
Yeah. He was
and it's just a wee bit more security that they won't absolutely throttle you. It doesn't really help you win a division, but it's just even in that worst case scenario, like he does get the 17 off the bench. Yeah. That's now a 52. Like a 52 forward isn't terrible, you know? Like,
yeah, definitely.
And if you've had your captain ping off, your goalkeeper's a 90 hero for some reason.
Yeah. He's been starting this season, so the point isn't quite as correct for him right now. But last season, it was just quite frustrating having him because he was that good. But it was just like, if he just started and played exactly the same game and didn't score, he'd be 10 points better, which in cap modes is a big... we've all been there in cap mode where you've got one player left to play and you just need him to come in off the bench because you just need that 25 points. But, you know, if that 25 points is now 35, you're a lot more confident that, sweet, you know, he's got an L15 of 28. The minute he comes off the bench, 35, as long as he doesn't mess up, we're laughing. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And fingers crossed then we get some cap modes and maybe even a cheeky few thresholds, who knows, because they have kind of teased that there might be some kind of threshold rewards and stuff like that come in. So whether or not that will be cash, I highly doubt. It'll probably be essence or something like that. But it'd be nice to know, you know, using these cap modes, I'd like to see some maybe like guaranteed essence or guaranteed this, because I am getting a bit bored of winning arena cards in the sort of rivals boxes. I don't know about you, but I've finished like top 3 on rivals pretty much I'll go up and then I'll come down and I'll win top 3 again and I'll get a box and go up. I don't think I've won anything decent out of those boxes like the end of the game week. You get the odd one here and there. I haven't won anything that exciting out of those boxes, but I just keep winning arena cards. So in these boxes, it'd be nice if, like, you know, we have these cap modes where guaranteed 20 essence or something like that. Like 20 essence if you get over 320, 40 essence if you get over 350, 50 essence if you score over 400 or whatever. Something like that'd be interesting to see if they deploy something like that, because I wouldn't mind winning, you know, like a guaranteed tier 5 amount of essence or something like that. And then if you want a tier 5, great. If you don't, you bang it in next week's. And I think that's probably the more likely way we'll see cap modes used. I don't think. What do you think? I can't envisage a future where they have a random cash threshold again. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. There was maybe something in the announcement the word threshold was used, but like I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a threshold based special weekly once in a while, you know. But I don't think it would be back in on the main menu, as it were, you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'd be a cash win though, like we've had. I feel like if they do a threshold, it'll be, you know, like some tiered amount of essence, or win this to win a tier 5, get that to get a tier 4, do that to win a tier 3 or whatever. But I don't see them giving cash away in anything but the in-season now. I think that's what the point of in-season will be, is like, want to win money, you got to spend money. Like, you got to buy some cards. And I think that, you know, in terms of like the product, the business, that feels a bit more sustainable, doesn't it, from a business perspective? They must be quite happy with how their cards are selling right now in that.
Yeah, the first batch are good. I think, like I mentioned before, like based on this, like, it's hard to imagine champion cards don't have some fireworks attached to them, you know, because like I know people have been saving their wallets for whatever their strategy is and what club they're into and all the rest of it, but it's really hard to imagine that there isn't a wad of cash sitting out there waiting for new season Prem and it's Bundesliga and La Liga, just because they've got those separate competitions for that kind of, like I say, that is a kind of watershed, those divisions, really, compared to the rest of it. Especially because it is just going to be, especially for the first like little while, it will be one of these competitions like La Liga and Bundesliga, Prem, where it's there's more and more entries most weeks, and the first game week is probably going to be the least amount of entries, and that's something people do pay a premium for in these in seasons. Contender and Challenger, like we mentioned before, don't quite have that because you've also got the non-EU teams that play in an in-season capacity, but in Champion that's not the case. So like the prices of these cards could be silly. Like Matt O'Reilly, the equivalent, he's 280. Equivalent in Champ is maybe what, 500, 600, if not more, depending on who it is specifically. If it's like Musiala or Wirtz or whatever, they could go for old school pricing.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the next few weeks pan out. But yeah, particularly going to be interesting looking at the price of these cards in the next few weeks as we start to see more and more of them minted. But I've just had a quick look on Sorare base, or So base as it's now called. You can go on there and see like what the cards are trending. So I've noticed that Alexander Schlager has gone up like 300% in the last couple of hours, and Pepe Reina up 233%, 32 sales. Is there some news about him? Where's he going?
He's signed for Como to be their number 2 goalkeeper.
Number 2 though. Yeah.
Because they're trying to get.
They're trying to get Varane, aren't they?
They've got Varane. They're trying to get a fun goalkeeper for number 1. But who the hell is it? Paul Lopez. They've signed.
Oh right.
Paul Lopez from Marseille. So he's number 1 and Reina's number 2.
Nice.
Paul Lopez is a rotation merchant, but he doesn't mind a bit of job sharing, as we all know, to the pain of many Sorare managers around the world. So maybe there's a wee job share on the go there.
Definitely. I'll tell you what I will mention as well, another thing. I saw Tony tweet today that he's trying to like swap collections with someone. Have you ever seen that before? Because that was a new one for me. From what I read, he tweeted something along the lines of, I've got this collection. Does anyone have these collections and want to swap? So he's trying to swap a whole club collection for another whole club collection. And I'd never seen anyone doing that before. But yeah, what's your take on that? The idea of swapping entire collection for collection, like choosing a club for the next season, I guess, to follow.
It would be great in theory, kind of thing, in terms of easy business to do, but it feels like shouting into the wind. There's probably not anyone that's like, oh yeah, that's me. Like I've been dying for that. You know, it's just the community's too small, I think, for quite that kind of thing. But you never know, man. Like honestly, maybe if somebody's like after it and just says, "Hey, I'll just buy it off you," you know, like I don't want to. I've not got whatever he was after to trade. I seen the tweet, but I didn't inspect all the pictures like that thoroughly to see what he was giving up and what he was hoping to get. But yeah, so it's one of those ones. Fun if it was happening. I'd love someone to come and try and buy my New York City collection off me. That'd make me really happy.
Yeah, I bought a Thiago Martins Super Rare the other day.
Oh, wow.
And then he didn't play, but he was supposed to be my guy to like scrape me into the threshold this week. But I keep finding myself short of a defender Super Rare of late. So I thought he was on the market. I only paid 50 quid for it. I thought that was pretty good. Like,
yeah.
Thiago Martins is like pretty solid, nailed on centre back. MLS. It is a classic card. It's not obviously an in-season one at that price, but yeah, I was, there's value to be had out there right now, definitely. And I've, for the first time in a while, been dragged into the market, sending like cheeky offers into people who might just be trying to get a few quid here and there. But yeah, I've had a bit of luck with goalkeepers moving and stuff of late. Like a couple of like sleeper cards in my gallery all of a sudden got a move to like the second division or whatever and looked like they've become a starter. So that is going to be interesting. I feel like I'm going to have plenty of goalkeepers as things are looking. I did actually have to let a club legend go. I noticed just before we came on live, actually, that my Matvey Safonov card has moved. My my level 20. He's been with me for many years, but I think that move to PSG puts a bit of a nail in the coffin for a few seasons, unless like they want to get rid of Donnarumma. I just can't see him getting many minutes. So I just had to let him go, sadly. I think it went for about 80 quid, something like that. Not a lot, but yeah, he was a good servant to the club down the years. He's probably won me some good cards. He's sad to see him go, but but only really be of use in the international breaks if Russia are in any fixtures that will be covered, whether or not they cover any more friendlies like they did recently. But I just thought, for me, it's one of them cards, a bit of a luxury to have in the gallery, waiting for an injury on Donnarumma or him to get a move somewhere. But yeah, that's where we're at, Quinny. Goalkeeper roulette is well and truly upon us right now, and getting rid of them is just as fun as bringing them in at the moment.
I had a club legend leave my club as well, and I've just found some lovely news of where he's ended up. But in my trades to get Saul Niguez, I let go my super rare Jordan Larson, who's been dusty for a while anyway. And now with the region split, that super rare is just totally pointless. He might leave Copenhagen, but really, where's he going to go where that changes for me? Probably nowhere quickly. And I traded him to wherever the bot was. But now he's owned by Sorare Down Under, which is lovely. So he's found a good home, which is good. He's not quite level 20 anymore after the 2 transactions, but down at level 12. And this is a guy that I loved. He's not won me anything since game week 469, and before that 377. So it's been a while, but he was a guy I spent a lot of money on. I loved watching Jordan Larson at Spartak Moscow. 12 cards won. The names here aren't that great, but back then these guys were all pretty handy in one way, shape, or form. Cavallini worth quarter of an ETH, 0.7 of an ETH for Vlasic. And there's a few other ones that aren't as spectacular. Mandy for quarter of an ETH, and then some super rares as well, which is fun. Of course, rather than it being a pro card, I was using it in the super rare division. So, yeah, gone but not forgotten. But he's at a good club now, so I hope when he does get playing for Copenhagen, I hope to see this card in amongst the rewards again for Sorare Down Under. But yeah, club legends. Sadly, I've had to leave a few clubs in this transition period, Stish, haven't they? As people have reformatted their galleries and whatever. And we shed a tier for Safonov. We shed a tier for Jordan Larson too. Russian cards, actually, which is a minor coincidence there. So, yeah, we've got one here from Agent Cooper asking about Villarreal's #1 next season. I think Diego Conde is insurance. They gave Philip Jorgensen a new contract. He played a lot here. Conde might get some minutes if you get Erled to go on a Jorgensen here and there. But I don't know if it's out and out. I think that if Conde is incredible in training and Jorgensen's not really there, maybe it could be Conde. But I think the way it stands now, it's going to be Jorgensen and Conde's insurance, or the guy pushing him in training to be as good as he can be, kind of thing. Worth having both of them, I'd say, at this stage.
Definitely. I think, unless Jorgensen, and yes, look, Jorgensen leaves. He's been linked to a few big clubs, hasn't he? But I feel like that a lot of the goalkeeper business is going to start to slow down at that level, because I think if he moves, he's going to move to like a top 5 division again, isn't he? He's in the mix now. He's kind of proven himself. He's young. So yeah, I'd agree. I think unless he gets a move, he's likely to kick on.
Yeah. Excellent. Anything else, Tishy Boy, we want to chew over today? We've kind of went through through the ringer of everything we've got here. I was hoping for the special weekly prize pool diorama. Whatever the graphics
the minute we log off, it'll come live and we'll be like, oh, there it is. They're like waiting for us to end. Maybe they are waiting for us literally to end, so we can't moan about it. So hopefully it's a good one. Fingers crossed for it anyway. But that special weekly prize pool, you've definitely made me feel a little bit more enthusiastic about it now. So fingers crossed it's good for everyone, and we see some nice fat prize pools in that announcement.
Yeah. And thanks to everyone that's joining us on the live stream. If you're listening to this on Spotify or whatever else after it's been out, thanks very much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, share, and retweet, and all that good stuff. You can find Plastician at Plastician basically on all the social media. And yeah, thanks to everyone that's joined us. Quinny 3001, of course, as well. State of Trouble. Yeah, all that good stuff, guys. Cool.